This episode of Made in America TV is brought to you by America's Inventor Lady and HomeTalkUSA. HomeTalk is a proud member of the King's Broadcasting Network, which has been bringing you the best in home-based innovation since 1998.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us for this episode of Made in America. And my guest for this segment of Build with America, and also known as Made in America, is Michele Nash-Hoff. And Michele, thank you so much for being with us this afternoon. Tell us about savingusmanufacturing.com. It's a website. It's your creation. What do you do?
Well, my website was created to promote my book. I have 3 books that I've written in the last 15 years. The most recent is Rebuild Manufacturing, the Key to American Prosperity. And that's a sequel to Can American Manufacturing Be Saved? Why we should and how we can. And we have saved it. Now we're still in the process of rebuilding it. And it's a repository for the over 300 articles I've written in the last 15 years as a blogger. So that's the purpose of savingusmanufacturing.com. I make a living as a sales rep. My company is Electrofab Sales. I've always represented only American companies that do what's called fabrication services to make mechanical parts for products.
Okay, so how have you seen that? I mean, yes, we know American manufacturing, blew up in the 80s, the 90s?
It really started in the 80s, but it didn't affect the kinds of lines I represented at first. It was mostly electronic components and radio, like consumer electronics, like TVs and radios, etc. That was from the Japanese competition in the 80s. And then it started getting into some of the electronic equipment used by companies in their businesses. And then the next big thing was sending manufacturing to Mexico with NAFTA. And I witnessed all that because I actually started my company in 1985. So I've seen all these things.
Yeah.
So we were, losing manufacturing to Mexico. But I read, write, and speak Spanish, and I actually got some business down at the maquiladores, Baja California, south of San Diego, where I live. And then the big change was when China was granted most favored nation status in 2000. And it was like a big tsunami of companies going to China for manufacturing.
Right.
And
So now, okay, so that was then, and we've seen, I know we've seen some of that starting to shift back to America because of costs.
oh yes, right. But really, what drove it first was quality problems and intellectual property theft. Because even when my first book came out in 2009, I have case studies of people that came back from China for those 2 main reasons.
Right, right. I know we've had Ian Osborne on a couple of times. He does miniature LED lighting systems. And
Right.
he started out manufacturing in China, but the failure rate was so high that even though it cost more per unit to make it in the US, he did better having the manufacturing done in the US because he didn't have the failure rate.
Exactly. And one thing I learned is that Chinese companies don't want to have you return defective parts. They won't give you credit for it because they take advantage of the Chinese law that says they can't import defective parts. So they're interpreting it, taking back products that they made as importing defective parts. So they won't give you credit for the defective parts that they made.
Well, that just is ridiculous, right?
Oh, yes.
They make, and I know that's one of the complaints I hear all the time from inventors who get a shipment in. And by the time they get done going through and checking for the failure rate, it's like, shoot me now because this is, ridiculous. And they can't send it back.
That's right. They can't.
And some of them have just a huge failure rate. So, what are you seeing now as far as, all right, so take us through the next phase of watching things come back. Failure rate, pricing, as the standard of living has been pushed up, the costs of goods have been pushed up in China.
Oh, yes.
So now we see, a lot of that technology that was obsolete. All right, now that we've got the technology, we can actually build a better factory.
Oh, yes, that's it. And I have a certificate in Lean Six Sigma, and the Lean Six Sigma has been one of the ways that manufacturers could compete because they can, reduce waste and improve quality and improve efficiency going through the lean training. So that's been a phenomenon of really the last 15 years, and that helped a lot of manufacturers compete globally and become more competitive against China prices.
Okay, so now with President Trump's tariffs, how are we seeing things shift now even more to our favor? And
Well,
that's complicated. It's a complicated issue. There is no doubt about it.
oh
But
yes.
we're starting to see things now shift.
Well, I just wrote an article over the weekend on what have been the effects of President Trump's tariffs.
I knew
And
you told me that, so that's why I know I could ask it.
right, right. And this, I have written articles about tariffs because I was promoting tariffs as a way to drive manufacturers to produce products in the United States. And I personally believe we need to have permanent tariffs because that is the only way that companies are going to make the long-term decisions to expand their manufacturing plants and bring back manufacturing from China. So right now the tariffs have been too volatile to have it's driving some people back to America, but we've been seeing reshoring happening now on a extended basis, as documented by the Reshoring Harry Mosier's Reshoring Initiative for the last 15 years. I got acquainted with Harry in 2010, right after he started it. I'm one of his authorized speakers and training people how to use total cost of ownership analysis to compare manufacturing in China versus the United States. So the tariffs are going to, we're seeing an increase in returning to America because of the tariffs. But, a lot of companies have made pledges to invest in the United States. And then we have my article covers a whole list of countries that have pledged billions of dollars. I mean, if you add up all the pledges on the White House website, it comes to something like $40 billion. Now, these are pledges because of the threats of higher tariffs, but only time will tell whether the countries actually go through with their pledges, as well as the pledges of companies like Apple and Nvidia and so forth. They've pledged a lot of expansion. But the tariffs, even the tariffs that Trump is implemented in his first term, the steel and aluminum tariffs, saved the American steel and aluminum industry, which was really in danger of going out of business on a major scale, which would have been
So,
a disaster.
absolutely, absolutely. I've got some questions I want to ask when we come back from this break, because
Okay.
we've got to go and pay some of those bills. So, what I want to talk to you about is a little bit more of the details on the concept of the tariffs and what is it. Everybody thinks it's a tax. We need to, tell us what it is. So I'll let you think about that while we take this break. Everybody, stick with us. We're going to talk about this really difficult topic some more. There's There's a lot to learn and understand how it is helping our economy. So stick with us, everybody. Important to understand so that you know when you listen to that next TV segment, you'll be able to say, I know more about this now because I listened to Build with America. Stick with us. We will be right back. And thank you so much for being with us for this segment of Build with America. And it is brought to you by Product Quick Start. Noah McNeely and Product Quick Start. They have been specializing in helping inventors do prototyping and manufacturing for decades. So Noah is considered, one of those guys. You don't see too many who they think can walk on water, but he would give somebody a good prototype to get into manufacturing, whether it's here in America or somewhere else. We do look at other countries besides, that C word. So anyway, Michele, thank you so much for being with us this afternoon. I do appreciate it. And we're talking about, something that's pretty complicated out there. Um,
Yes.
Everybody thinks of tariffs as being a negative thing. Tell us why it's positive.
Well, for 150 years, we had tariffs that protected the development and growth of American manufacturing against the products made by England and France that Americans were first importing totally because we didn't have any domestic, manufacturing base. So it was the tariffs that started actually, as soon as the United States was, founded, we had tariffs on products coming from England and France to encourage people to start making things in the United States. And it was a major revenue for the US government for 150 years. And it wasn't until after World War II that we entered an agreement called the General Agreement on Tariffs and Taxes, where we drastically reduced the tariffs that we were charging for companies to, export and us to import their products. And it
Okay,
was the
so
purpose of it then was to rebuild Europe and Japan and help those countries.
right.
But we didn't take into the long-term effects that it was going to have on American manufacturing because we lost that protection for our domestic companies by really reducing the tariffs to virtually nothing. But what happened with other countries is they started charging value-added taxes to protect their domestic
Explain what that
industries.
is. Explain what that is.
That is a tax on the producing of products in a country, and it's um, so all the citizens of that company pay that value added tax. But when they export a product to the United States, the company that gets a rebate from, like, say, the German government for that value added taxes. And then the consumer that's buying products in the United States that are German products or French products or Spanish products or whatever, they're paying that value added tax. And there's 177 countries that charge a value added tax. And the US is virtually the only country that hasn't been charging a value added tax. So,
Let me see if I can break it down, though, into something that our listeners are going to understand as a comparison.
right,
Okay, so you've got the industry of electric cars now.
right,
There are a lot of states that charge a higher fee to get your license plate because you're no longer buying as much gasoline.
right,
So you are going to pay the state one way or another. You're either going to pay them based on how much gasoline you use. And if you've got an electric car, you are going to pay more for your tags because the state needs the money.
right.
So are we on the right track as far as understanding what, ballpark that means a value added tax?
Well, the value added tax purpose was to protect their domestic industries.
Right.
And that was the purpose of it. So, and encourage exports. encourage companies to be making products to export, which then brought in more revenue for the country and made their trade balance more positive. Where when we didn't charge a tariff, or we had very, very low tariffs, and we didn't charge a value-added tax, we were losing revenue and we were buying more imports than we were exporting. And so,
There was certainly a an imbalance.
oh yeah,
It's like being on a teeter-totter, if you're, hanging out in the air, instead of going back and forth, something's not fair. Something's
oh,
not
we,
right.
we were not on a level playing field at all. The United States was at total disadvantage to other countries.
Why did we let that happen?
It it was partly because we there were people that believed we needed to have a global economy and to eventually have a one world government where everything was all equal. That was the original, that was the purpose behind it.
So we
And
lost because everybody else was
yeah,
talking big
right,
dreams, you know,
exactly.
to have a global. We know that that's not going to happen.
No, the globalists, the global bankers, the global international companies, they didn't want the U.S. to be number one, to be first. They wanted this, other countries to have more of an advantage against the U.S. So,
And so we made ourselves vulnerable,
oh
and now we're
yes.
trying to claw back.
Oh, yes, right. And there were people that were naive and thought, oh, well, if we encourage free market, this will encourage countries to become more democratic instead of communist or instead of dictatorships or whatever. So there was naive thinking behind that philosophy also.
Yes, definitely. And you know, it's it would have been so much easier, hindsight's always 50-50, to not go there than it is to claw it back.
Oh, it is. It is. It's going to be painful for some companies to find domestic sources if they can. Our biggest problem is now we have lost domestic manufacturers for certain products, especially electronic components and electrical components. There are simply for some products, there are no U.S. sources. So that's going to be the biggest problem is that we're until somebody decides like now we're getting incentives to have government incentives to have pharmaceuticals made back in the United States and chips to be made back, semiconductors to be made in the United States. But we're going to actually have to target certain components that we want to get back to making in the United States and have government investment and to kick it off. I mean, like instead of small business investment grants, we need to have small business technology grants for um, shall we say, redeveloping the capability to make certain products in the United States.
So, all right, we are going to be right back with more of this very interesting and very complicated issue of, Build with America. So stick with us, everybody. We're going to go and pay some bills, and then we will be right back to get more information from Michele. Michele, thanks so much for being with us this afternoon because you're shedding some light on something, we have all heard about the last few months. There has been all kinds of scary tactics out there on the news about using tariffs to try to balance things. But other countries have been, taking advantage of us for a long time.
Oh yes, and in tariff, they're using what's called mercantilist policies. They're undervaluing their currency. They are doing government subsidies to different industries. China is the biggest, you know, uh, criminal in this viewpoint, but Japan and other countries are also doing it, and they also, product dumping. They're dumping products at below cost to take over a market. They did this with solar panels. That's how they took over the solar panel industry for making the actual panels, is they sold them below the cost of what a U.S. company could make the solar panel
Yeah.
to destroy the U.S. market.
I think one of the big things that a lot of our listeners don't understand is that, those different governments, all right, for them, their people are the most important. Keeping their people at work is what keeps their community balanced. All right. So civil war is not fun for anybody. And so they want to keep their people employed, keep everything in balance, keep things a reasonable cost, and that's where they go with it. So if America is making something, they don't want a lower product. They want to be able to ship to us and compete. So they do these, they supplement their factories. They want to be able to use taxes, and, they use a whole bunch of different tools to keep the trade deficit in their favor.
Oh, yes, they do.
And we can't use those. We get to use a tariff, and that's it.
That's right. That's right. Other countries are violating the terms of the World Trade Organization, and they're not getting, punished for it. They're it's not, every year since China became most favored nation, which called permanent national trade, PNTR, permanent national trade country, approved every year. There was a commission, the U.S.-China Trade Commission, that submitted a report to Congress on the violations of their World Trade Organization agreement between China and the United States. Every year, this report reported all the violations, and nobody did anything to punish China.
Well, and why even have an organization like that if they're not going to hold the offenders accountable?
Exactly. I know somebody that was on the commission for 10 years, and he was, and I've read 3 of the reports myself as a part of my, research for my different books. So it was, flagrant violations, but nobody was, bringing them to, to have any kind of um, punishment to stop them from doing this. That was the problem.
Yep. And
So
now
Trump is the first one that wanted to stop it.
yeah, I was just gonna, well, as a businessman, he understands what's going on.
Oh,
So
yes, he does.
he's our hero. He is bringing, this to light so that we can finally understand it. And, we all understand taxes. We got to pay our taxes. You go to the gas pump and you know how much is, basically a tank of gas plus the state tax. All right. You go to the store, you check out, you pay tax. Everybody understands that. But it's not the same here as it is in other countries. They've got so many more tools that the government uses to stabilize their economy that are not available to us in America.
Exactly. Exactly.
And so we have been looking at the consumer setting goals, standards, pricing, what they're willing to do. We all want the cheapest product. It's time now to want the best product.
Oh, yes. And that has been increasing. The desire to buy made in USA products has been increasing every year for the last 10 years, according to polls that I have read. So there are people, in fact, Walmart actually instituted a program several years ago pledging to buy more US made products. And first they pledged 250 billion, then they pledged 500 billion. So they've upped it because they know that their customers want more US based products, and they actually have lived up to their pledges. I've actually gone to Walmart and looked for made in USA products, and there's many more products made in USA now at Walmart and Target and other stores like that than there were 10 years ago.
Well, that's good to know. I know when we go to ASD Market Week, we've got a good number of the inventors that are already manufacturing and they're made in America products. And we do feature them. I know that ASD Market Week does have a whole category of made in America products. So we see more and more of that coming to light as far as focusing on Made in America. And, yeah, it's going to be a slow process coming back. But I think that the factories then, that the new ones that get built or refurbished, will have better technology. And, no, are they going to employ as many people in the past? No, but they're still going to employ more than they are now.
Oh, yes, definitely. We've seen an increase in manufacturing employment over the last 15 years because of the Reshoring Initiative company. That's the efforts of Harry Moser and teaching people how to do total cost of ownership analysis, because there's hidden costs of doing business offshore that people have not been taking into consideration unless they do this analysis. You can't just compare piece price. And you can't just maybe add the cost of transportation. He's actually quantified the cost of quality, the cost of having more inventory, the cost of international intellectual property theft. So these things are all part of that analysis, and that's helping a great deal. And as companies, adopt the industry 4.0 technologies and artificial intelligence, that is helping them become more competitive also.
So I think that, when we look back, it's like, all right, well, we lost everything, but a lot of the factories were becoming really dated and old technology. And the easiest way to put in the new stuff, all right, is like, okay, we got to start from the beginning. Let's build a new factory.
Right, right. It is easier, just as far as setting up, the plant and the workflow and the kind of equipment you buy. But also, it is possible to totally transform your company through, getting this lean manufacturing training, because it actually goes and looks at value stream mapping and how the work is flowing through your factory, and eliminate the bottlenecks and improve the quality and improve the efficiency. So I'm a big believer of that. Of course, I'm also, involved in the inventor world like you are. I'm on the board of the San Diego Inventors Forum and have been on the board since 2014, and have tried to help a lot of companies, find domestic sources. I give an annual presentation on how to select the right processes and sources for your new products. And I'll be giving it at our August meeting on August 14th in San Diego.
Excellent, excellent. Well, we're going to take a break, and, because, we have to. For all of those stations out there that are carrying us, we've got to go pay some bills. So that's very cool. And we are grateful to every station out there that is willing to carry Build with America. When we come back, I'm going to ask you a question, and let me give you a heads up. There are companies that manufacture in the US that sell internationally. What is their challenge? So you think about that one while we go and pay some bills. And everybody, I'm going to tell you where to go shopping to find your Made in America products. So stick with us, everybody. We'll be right back. Everyone, and thanks again for being with us for this segment of Build with America. My name is Rita Crompton, and normally I am on with Invent America, but today I get to be the host of Build with America, also known as Made in America, Made in the USA. We are fighting to get it all back. So, Michele, right before we took the break, I wanted to ask you about companies that manufacture in America. How is this tug of war, all right, affecting them?
Well, right now it's giving American manufacturers the opportunity to capture back more of the domestic market. Remember, the United States is the biggest market in the world. China has the biggest population, but not very much of China is middle class that can afford to buy products. There are still too many people at the poverty level in China and other countries too. So we can expect to drastically increase our exports to the rest of the world because they don't have very large markets for the kinds of products that Americans buy. And China has overproduced in so many categories of products that they've flooded the global marketplace to the point that they can't even sell all that they're making. China can't sell all that they're making now because they've flooded the market so greatly. So it's better for American manufacturers to concentrate on capturing more of the domestic market instead of thinking they're going to expand their global market because other countries, the people just can't afford to buy the kinds of products that Americans can.
Yes, that is true. And every country does a lot of its own manufacturing. There are certain things, that are country specific, and they will continue to be country specific.
And that's what needs, I actually have a presentation I call The Future of Manufacturing. And globally, we're going to see a shift to more regional manufacturing for companies to be making products for their own country instead of exporting. And that will increase their middle class because manufacturing jobs are the foundation of the middle class. So every country needs to look at expanding their domestic manufacturing base to provide products for their citizens. And that will help their country have more middle class people. That was what created the middle class in the United States was manufacturing jobs because they
Right.
pay higher than service jobs. They pay higher than any other job unless you're, a highly degreed, highly paid, scientist or technician or doctor or lawyer, etc.
Yeah. I mean, our manufacturing heyday was basically from what, the late 30s to the late 70s?
No, it actually was between 1870 and 1940.
Okay.
That was our heyday. We became
Okay.
we became the largest manufacturer by 1920 after World War. We were the largest manufacturer in the world.
Okay. All right. And then it started falling off. I was thinking that we were still doing pretty good up until about
Well,
the
we
80s.
we got to enjoy it for another 20 years between after World War II because so many of the uh, countries had been devastated by the war. We were the only major country that didn't have any, a war on our country, within our country, like all of Europe did,
Right,
and
right.
like Japan did, etc. So that was why we got to enjoy being the dominant manufacturer in the after World War II up till around, started 1979 was the last time we had a positive trade balance.
Okay. You
Yeah,
know,
19, can you believe that? 1979?
don't all of those big shots that changed everything, don't you want to just sometimes go and, poke them in the eye?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Right.
It's like, what were they thinking?
They weren't. They
You,
were just enjoying, they were just enjoying the profits they were making and not thinking of the long term. And it's mainly government officials, not companies. It was what the people we were electing were making the wrong decisions for the benefit of our country.
yeah, they weren't making decisions for the benefit of the middle class for sure.
No, not at all.
They really didn't care.
Yeah, no. And part of it was, do you remember the book Megatrends that came out? And it was talking about the end of the industrial age. We were going to transfer to the information age, and, we were not going to. I read it in 1979. I thought, this person is out of his mind.
What would they think everybody was going to do?
Right. Exactly.
Sit around and eat pretzels and drink beer?
Right. I know.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. What they did to our country, our economy, the middle class that built America, and all of those really frustrating things. Now that we can look back, like I said, hindsight's always 50-50, and you can see the mistakes, but they are things that can be corrected. And I do feel that we are on a better path now than we have been for the last 50 years.
Oh, yes, definitely.
So, everyone, you know what? This is the show where we are going to talk about how America is changing. Build with America, also known as Made in America. All right. And if you want to go out there and buy products that are made in America, madeinamericastore.com. All right. 15,000 products, and every single one of them is made right here in America. So go shopping, everybody. You know what? Go out there and look for those things that say Made in America, and Made in America stores where you can find them. Come back with us next week. We are going to be talking to someone else about some of the challenges going on and some of the very cool products and some of the companies that are actually doing the manufacturing. So we'll have more for you next week. And thank you, America, for being with us.